2021 NFL uniform rankings. Today, we're going to go through all 32 teams. Ever since we've been watching football, we've loved the sport, but we also analyze and break down the uniforms. Because if you're playing out there and you have millions of people watching, you might as well look good performing. We're going to look at the primary uniforms, home and road. We're not looking at alternates because there's enough to criticize just with the regular uniforms. And the point isn't just to criticize, but there are a lot of bad uniforms out there.
And there shouldn't even be alternates.
Right. It's one thing to go back and have turn-back uniforms, but to have regular alternates is unnecessary, and rarely do they add anything positive to the uniform. We really value contrast in uniforms. Designers don't think about that anymore. When we first began watching sports, and even the decades before, typically you'd see helmet matching the pants for the primary home uniform, and then the jersey would contrast that. That's what we like to see. We like to see traditional uniforms. We're not going to hide that fact. And they're usually the best uniforms because there's a reason they stood the test of time, whether that be the Packers, the Cowboys, the Steelers, any of the most successful teams in the league's history. So we have a system and a criteria for evaluating these uniforms. It's not just our own personal feelings. We're putting those aside as best as we can. We have our preferences, and everyone has a right to their opinion, to what they like or what they don't like, but there's not much taste when it comes to design anymore. It's just about what's loud, what's going to stand out, what's different, what hasn't been done, but it doesn't mean that it's any good. And we're evaluating, when we talk about the uniform, we're evaluating the helmet, the jersey, the pants, and the socks. And we can't even get into shoes because shoes are worse than ever, and that's just completely out of control.
Right. If they were uniform and shoes, we could include that, but we can't at this point.
So let's go ahead and start looking at these uniforms. And even before we get into these first uniforms, the most interesting thing was when we'd start off in week one, just say back in the 90s, you wouldn't necessarily know which teams would have new uniforms because it's either it was pre-internet or the internet was very young. Not everyone had access to it, so the only way you might find out about a new uniform is you may hear it on the radio, perhaps you read it in the paper, but the teams may completely keep it to themselves and conceal it until that first week. Our example was the 98 49ers when they had gold pants for the first time in 2 seasons, where they had the white pants. And what a surprise it was. And I'm sure there will be some surprises as the season goes on because you don't know everything, but we've compiled a list as best as we know. So we're going to start off with the worst, and we're going to go all the way to the best, all 32 teams. The number 32 is the Atlanta Falcons.
So taking a look at the Falcons, who have revised just in 2020, very recently, have a lot of the modern trends visible. A matte helmet, an oversized logo, a shiny face mask. We have the block letter ATL on the jersey. And we have very modern blocky numbers with a drop shadow. And the pants are very simplistic. We do have at least a stripe of some sort, which some teams don't have at all at this point, but it's sharp and thin and doesn't really help the structure that much. And the socks just are an extension of the jersey, and the pants, they don't provide much contrast or structural help really to enhance the uniform.
So in my opinion, when I see this, they got just about everything wrong with this uniform. You mentioned the helmet. The logo is a trendy logo. Well, it was when it was released. They have the name, which is oversized. The numbers are terrible. They've got the matte helmet to go along with that logo, and then they've got the color on color. For us, this is an easy pick as our worst uniform. Black on black at home, on the road, white on white, and I'd even say it looks even worse in indoor stadium.
Right. The matte helmet under the indoor lights looks even worse. I would also mention that, well, at least personally, I was hoping that they might go back to one of their original uniforms from the early 2000s, 90s, 80s, black or red. It would have been an improvement. They could have at least changed their logo to something that was closer to the original logo instead of continuing on with this one, which they introduced in the early 2000s. They did have that opportunity, and it's too bad that they didn't try and go back instead of going deeper into modern trends.
Yeah, when we were considering our criteria for evaluating these uniforms, we were discussing, as I said before, helmet, jersey, pants, and socks. And they got it all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They really did. And the system that we use to grade these teams is, we're looking at positives and negatives, but we're especially zeroing in and focusing on negatives or weaknesses, as you put it, and everything on this uniform is a weakness. And the Falcons, historically, you wouldn't say they had the best or even top 5 uniform, but it was a solid uniform that they wore in the past, and easily this is the worst uniform they've ever had, and it is the worst uniform in the entire league, and not one that anyone should try to copy or emulate in any way.
Right, it's more the style you'd have expected in the Arena League or XFL.
On a positive note, about the only thing they got right was they aren't hockey-style uniforms.
Right.
That's the only positive thing I can say about them.
That was an improvement.
And they did keep their team colors, but that's all I can find.
Right.
Okay, number 31, the New York Jets.
New York Jets, somewhat of a hybrid situation with elements from the Joe Namath era and the 80s, 90s era with the dark helmet, glittery tone, text that is similar to the Joe Namath era, but also looks somewhat similar to the 80s, 90s era as well. Black face mask, similar to the 80s, 90s era as well. The jersey keeps the colors that are familiar, but adds the stripes and also the New York name added prominently above the numbers. The pants have a stripe, but it does not go all the way to the bottom. And the socks are probably one of the best parts of the jersey.
Yeah, I'll say just start off with a positive, and there is actually a positive that I can find with the Jets jersey. As much as I don't like the uniform altogether, there is that contrast that we're looking for, at least between the home jersey and the pants, or the road jersey and the pants, which the Falcons don't have.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we're going to criticize throughout, is we do not like color on color, and at least in the default standard uniforms, the Jets get that right. But the stripes drive me crazy on the jersey. The numbers are terrible. The name is huge, not as big as the Falcons, but it's big enough that you can't miss it.
Mm-hmm.
The helmet's okay. It's very similar to the 90s helmet. But this was a real downgrade over against what they had previously. You know, you go back to the Joe Namath 60s Jets, which was their only Super Bowl, and then they returned to that in this past 2 decades ago now. Well, even all the way actually in 98. We mentioned 98 for the 49ers, but that was also the debut of the Jets returning to their classic uniforms.
Right.
As well. So they abandoned that. All their history of real success came with the Super Bowl with Joe Namath, and then they went to 2 conference title games. We'll call them the Rex Ryan Jets. And that's all I can think of as any real recent success for the Jets, and they go in a completely new direction. And I know the New York teams are not necessarily supposed to have the most beautiful uniforms. That's not what New York's about.
Mm-hmm.
But they got it wrong here. They're trying to go in a new direction with the franchise, but they got almost nothing right here.
Right, and one of the big things for me is I would like to have just seen them have the Jets text on the helmet, remove the football below it, similar to the 80s, 90s Jets helmet. That would have been cleaner.
Number 30, the Tennessee Titans.
Tennessee Titans recently changed their uniforms from the ones that they had in the early 2000s, which were more similar to the Tennessee Oilers, Houston Oilers. And so now we have the dark blue helmet, which is also matte. The same logo retained from the previous Titans uniforms. Jersey is now instead of more solid, it's more fragmented with the gray panels on the shoulder pads. Still similar colors, blue and white, for the home and road. And then with the pants simplified, just the white and the blue. The socks are pretty solid white, blue on white.
Well, when the Oilers became the Titans, to me it was a big loss for uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
The Oilers had a very strong uniform, and neither of us are fans of white helmets,
Mm-hmm.
but the Oilers had one of the best white helmets, the most appealing looking helmets, with a good face mask. And I loved the blue tops.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loves the Chargers, but the Oilers were also very good. And I thought the Titans had one of the weakest helmets when it was white. The blue is somewhat of an improvement, but they're just they're ugly uniforms. I mean, there's no one thing that is just awful, like the Falcons or the Jets, but they're just a hard watch to me. We prefer a helmet that has contrast with the jersey. You don't necessarily have to have that. We have teams that are ranked high that don't, but that is what often contributes to a strong uniform, and I'm going to say that a few times as we go on. But gray doesn't work, as you'll see on the shoulders. It's definitely worthy of being at the bottom of the list. I mean, it could be worse, but there's no particular strength. The numbers are very bad. That's what all these lower teams on our ratings and rankings are. The weakness comes up as the numbers.
Right, we have the one here appearing as if it's backwards.
The numbers are pencil thin. It's time for a redesign. New logo, new jersey, new everything. I don't think the Titans fans would mind, because the first thing that's always associated with the Titans is being 1 yard short in the Super Bowl. Number 29, the Seattle Seahawks.
Seahawks have a matte helmet with unique pattern stripe, if you could call it that, running down the middle of it. Jersey has multiple different segments. Shoulder patch, which is neon. The collar stripe, gray on the home jersey, dark blue on the road jersey. Large, even oversized numbers with an inner pattern, also very trendy style number, modern type trend style numbers. Both pants have a stripe that goes all the way down, but it's unusual, the pattern. And the socks are the same. Dark blue for both home and road uniform.
Ever since the Seahawks returned to the NFC, they have never been able to get it right. I'll say the one positive before we get to the negatives, because we have a list of problems here. The logo on the helmet overall is all right. You know, the Seahawk is angrier than it used to look, but they have a matte helmet. Why?
And where they would usually have a stripe down the middle of the helmet on many helmets, they have a strip that is shiny. It's not matte. Why isn't the rest of the helmet that way? And specifically looking at the home uniform, look at this. Helmet blue, jersey blue, pants blue, socks blue, 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 blue. It's too much. And I know they're going for this northwestern, damp, rainy look. A little contrast, please. And then there's the choice of having neon on the sleeves as an outline for the numbers and on the pants. Neon green should be banned. I said we wouldn't talk about alternates, and we're not. But we could just go off on that. The road uniform is better. It's not good, but it's better compared to the home because you at least have blue helmet, white jersey, blue pants and socks. When they choose to use that, that is the best option they have for a road uniform. You know, we used to complain about the last uniform set they had being all blue at home. But I'd take that over this. But could we please go back to the 80s, 90s look? And we'll be a broken record with that. But silver helmet, lighter blue, silver pants. How about seeing that more normal green in there? It's time to bury these uniforms.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken, it was the first Nike design uniform after Nike took over. And so they definitely took the opportunity to experiment a lot with different elements. And it would be nice if they went back to something at least somewhat closer to the original Seahawks uniforms.
And their numbers, bad enough they have the outline that's neon green, but they have a pattern inside of them. That's a problem with the Seahawks. It's a problem. The numbers with our next team.
Now, number 28, the Los Angeles Rams. I think there is more we could say about this than any other team. I think many people would be surprised to see we have them at number 28 on the list.
Right. We have the glittery helmet with the new revised ram horn logo, which is separated into segments, 2 parts. You have the jersey with no TV numbers on the shoulder pads. The numbers, which are a strange font. They are a gradient, and they have both fabric and plastic vinyl alternate elements incorporated into it, so inconsistent. The pants have a stripe, but also it's a gradient, and it does not complete the length of the pant leg. It stops. And then you have the blue socks for both home and road. And again, the Los Angeles Rams name patch on both the home and road uniform jersey, and especially strange is the road jersey. The color, again, is off-white, and that patch is actually white, which has been pointed out before. Doesn't make sense why they would use plain white. And it seems as if this year their default home jersey has been changed to blue on off-white.
We could talk 30 minutes just about the Rams and all the changes they've had going back to when they were originally in Los Angeles and then St. Louis and now back in Los Angeles. And they've changed their uniform so many times just since we've followed football. They had the classic blue and yellow. Then after winning the Super Bowl in '99, they decide to change their uniform color from yellow to gold. They keep the blue, but it's now a even darker blue, more of a navy blue. They kept experimenting with it. And not to mention when they switched to blue pants with the gold, which is another move they did. I'm thinking back. And they've made so many changes. They had blue on blue even. And then getting back to Los Angeles, they decided to eliminate gold pants altogether. And then they just had the white helmets, the white and blue, which would remind you of the original look they had way back in Los Angeles, which I would have been okay with if they just simply went with white and blue. It's plain, but it's a solid look. And then they wore in the Super Bowl against the Patriots the classic blue and yellow uniforms that everyone loves. And when it was announced that they were going to have new uniforms, we just were assuming, well, they're going to go back to those uniforms.
Or something close.
Or something closer. And the worst thing is that they teased us with these uniforms because when they were first revealed, at first glance, they're close to the 70s, 80s, 90s uniforms. They look good. But the longer you look and the closer you look, you're going to be nothing but disappointed. And to some people, they're minor changes. But to us, they're significant changes in a deformed version of the classic uniform. They ruined it. All they got right was the colors. It's an experiment that went wrong. The Seahawks are an experiment that went wrong. The Rams are an experiment that went wrong. I mean, if this was the 90s Rams, just say the 99 Rams, this would probably be a top 5 in our rankings. We have it at number 28 because they changed the helmet unnecessarily. I see why they did it, but it just seems like change for the sake of change. We mentioned the numbers. They have arguably the worst numbers now in the league. You could say the Seahawks, but I think, again, because they altered and messed with such a great uniform, I consider it worse. Probably the worst, only uniform numbers I can think of worse are the alarm clock Buccaneers. Which uniform is worse? Starting with the home, at first glance or at a distance, it looks fairly good as long as they're not wearing color on color. And whether they wear color on color or not, it wouldn't change my ranking of where they would be because the issues with this uniform set are so awful. Okay, so for these modifications and updates, why would you ever have a gradient number? Why would you have plastic on the number? It's not so bad on the home. You don't see it as well as you do on the road, but it's there. And it's there on the shoulder sleeves. And then on the road,
It doesn't have the gradient on the number, but there is a lot of plastic on there. It's very shiny. It stands out in a bad way. And then you have the off-white color. They look dirty, as if they were not washed.
What can I say about the Rams? They had a great opportunity to have one of the best uniforms in football, and this is what they came up with. It's a head scratcher, and they failed with this, and hopefully they'll decide in the future to go back to the uniform that we're familiar with. And after all, it's the only uniform they ever won a Super Bowl in. Number 27, the Arizona Cardinals.
White helmet with the Cardinal logo, gray face mask, jerseys that both have divided segments, more noticeable on the road jersey than the home, but still black lines that divide the segments of the shoulder pads from the actual chest. And then we have the Cardinals name on the front with numbers that are somewhat in between current trend at the time they were made, 2005, and traditional, not quite as dramatically different as some of the number fonts the more current uniforms have, but still not traditional. And then we have the pants, both white with the stripe that is not completed to the end of the pants. And then we have the red socks with the white lower portion of the sock.
Yeah, we are both not fans of the white helmets, but it works okay for the Cardinals, and historically that's what they've gone with, and I don't have a problem with it.
What I always want to see was a red stripe down the middle of the Cardinals helmet. I always found it peculiar that they didn't have anything. It's one of the most plain helmets you have in the league.
They changed the Cardinal to look angrier, just like they did with the Seahawk on the helmet. That's fine, but
my biggest issue is the jersey itself. Home, can we have solid red? It was not flashy, but it was a respectable look. And then on the road, the hockey style uniform. Why that ever caught on with several teams around the league is beyond me.
yeah, not a fan of the name on the jersey and those stripes on the pants. It's too bad, like the Seahawks, that they've stuck with bad uniforms so long, but this one has been around for 15 years and they haven't changed it. And I have to make a comment about their pants too, because what we see here is, again, we're trying to present the best looking uniforms and give teams the benefit of the doubt. They often wear the red on red at home, and this is the first time we're going to bring this up in the review, this is what we call the pajama look. Color on color, but especially the red on red, is a terrible look. The Cardinals have done it. The Texans have done it. And if I may say so, it looks even worse inside than it does outdoors. The Cardinals have had the most success in our lifetime in these uniforms. As sorry as I am to say, these are the uniforms that I first think of now because they've had them so long. They got to a Super Bowl, and then they've been in the playoffs multiple times with these uniforms. But I feel like I'm saying the same thing as we did with the Seahawks. It's time to come up with something better. It's time to move on from the trendy look. Number 26, the Minnesota Vikings.
Have a matte helmet with the logo, which now usually is separated because of the various vents in modern helmets, which is too bad, and a black face mask, which there's really no black other than in the Viking horn to have that included in the face mask. The jersey, both home and road, there is some division of segments, but at least they are not different colors. The striping on the sleeves is a bit strange in that it's straight and then comes to a curve, and would have looked better if they had just used a straight line all the way to the end. The numbers are a also more modern font on the taking off on the Viking style lettering. And again, we have the name of the team on the front of the jersey above the numbers. The pants have a stripe that goes all the way from top to bottom, and the socks are consistent purple at the top, white on the bottom.
I'm very disappointed in the Vikings. They've had not the greatest uniforms in the league, but uniforms I respect and have respected really until kind of the present era, this century. And they've had a lot of winning in their franchise. They've never been able to get the Super Bowl, but I think of the Fran Tarkenton Vikings, even going back to the 60s, they had good uniforms, and they made the most of wearing purple. Purple is not a very popular color in sports, but it's the Vikings. I think of the purple people eaters, going back to their defense that they had, and they've had so many great players, the Chris Carters, Randy Moss, and others who have worn the Vikings jersey, John Randall, and they decided to change it to this. And I like the helmet that they've had, but my same issue is the vent just ruins it. The home uniform is okay, but I have to say, it just looks bad having Kirk Cousins as your quarterback, and the helmet never looks worse than what he wears as the one who represents the team, as the team leader, the quarterback. And the home uniform overall is okay, but again, that matte helmet is bad. My issue is with the road uniform more than anything, especially the pants. Usually we like contrast, as we've said, but with the Vikings, the white on white has always worked nicely.
Mm-hmm.
There's just too much purple, and it just doesn't work for pants. It's okay for the top. It just is not a good look, whether it's the Vikings or it's the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish they would have stayed with one of their classic looks. Just about anything other than what they've had this last 15 years or so, they just need to make some modifications and have a better uniform.
Right, bring him back to be more the traditional style or close to it than more modern variant.
The Jacksonville Jaguars come in at number 25. And the Jaguars have changed their look too often throughout the years, which is always a sign of a weak team that doesn't have an identity. They, like the Panthers, really were a pretty strong expansion team who had quick success. My favorite uniform that they had was the original uniform, and it's ever since it's just been downhill.
Right. And this year they've announced that they are making a change to turquoise / teal uniforms, jerseys as their primary jersey, again from black to turquoise. And we do note that we haven't seen this team yet throughout the season, so we don't know exactly how much they will consistently wear what uniform set. But from what we have at this moment, it's the black helmet with the Jaguar on it. Again, a couple years ago, an improvement over the two-tone black and gold helmet, black in the front, gold in the back. And you have the turquoise / teal jersey at home with the black pants and black and turquoise / teal socks with white on the bottom. The road jersey looks like it will be the white jersey with the black pants and the same black, teal, turquoise stripe and white socks.
Yeah, they've decided to go with a new look because they have their new quarterback, who they hope will finally be the franchise quarterback, and Trevor Lawrence. You know, they've gone through Mark Brunell, they've gone through Byron Leftwich, they've gone through David Garrard, and they think they finally got the quarterback now. And when that happens and you have a history of mediocrity and losing, which, well, they've had. I mean, they've had some successful years with getting the championship with Blake Bortles. There's another one.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, they've been losers over the last 10 plus years. They've got to make a change. I like the helmet, and that's why we don't have them back where we were at the very bottom of the list. But the rest of the uniform, what can we say about the jersey? You know, I like it because it's a unique color. No one else has it. But it's so boring. It's just dull. There's nothing to it. It could use, the numbers can really use an outline of some sort. The pants, which we've seen in the preseason, like you said, we've seen all black and no stripe.
Right.
No stripe at all. I just don't understand the trend of the skin-tight pants, but even worse, I don't understand why having no stripe has become as popular as it has become. I'll get to the road uniform here. There's nothing terribly wrong with it. I don't like the numbers on either, but it could be anyone's. It could practically be any team that has white and black jersey, at least, and pants. Depending on the socks. We're not even sure about the socks. We see a little turquoise teal in there in what is supposed to be the default uniforms, but we actually have not seen that in the preseason.
Right, we've seen the teal jersey and the white pants twice, and the white jersey and the black pants once, and it's unclear at this point what is accurate, as we have found out teams wear uniform combinations that they don't normally wear in the preseason or in the regular season during the preseason.
With those weaknesses, I will say that this is an improvement over what we'll call the Blake Bortles Jaguars.
Right.
Which had one of the biggest declines I can remember of a team that reached a championship game, just imploded. So we'll see if the Jaguars are going in the right direction this year. Number 24, the Miami Dolphins.
Dolphins have a white helmet with the revised Dolphin logo, a turquoise jersey at home with the Dolphins name above the chest numbers. The chest numbers are more of a current type font. Pants for the home jersey are white with a stripe that goes all the way down, and default is turquoise socks. The road uniform is pretty much the opposite of the home one. White jersey, turquoise pants, white socks.
So are there any strengths with this uniform?
The fact that it's primarily only two colors is good, and a lot of the elements are similar to the traditional Dolphins uniform, but it isn't as strong as past versions. And the white face mask just ends up being too much the color white in the helmet because of that factor.
Yeah, I agree. The helmet, the Dolphin, I can see why they went to this logo, but I did prefer the past logo on the helmet. We both felt strongly that their most appealing set of uniforms was in the 90s. Just the Dan Marino there with the white jersey, the turquoise pants, and then the face mask to match as well, having the colored face mask. Since then, and some of the years following, we've come down to this uniform where helmet's weaker. You have the name across, which we don't like. The numbers are really weak. And the road uniform, that's talking about the home uniform. The road uniform, it was just an adventure trying to track down, well, what is their primary road uniform? Because the pants and the socks keep changing so much between them wearing retro uniforms and then so many variations on the current uniform. This was, as we said, the best version that we could put forward that they currently have. That's not a turn-back uniform. I never felt like the Dolphins have had the strongest uniforms, but they were uniforms I respect. These ones, to me, have the feel of expansion team.
Right.
They're not the weakest in the league, but we have them at number 24. They are the back half, and they are worse than average.
Right. And especially on the road when they wear the turquoise pants, so often they wear the turquoise socks with them as well, and it's too much turquoise all the way down. Not enough contrast.
It's too bad because I associate the Dolphins now with that expansion team feel, and they haven't been a winning organization in a long time, and historically they were a very successful team with Don Shula and the 72 and the 73 Dolphins, and people forget they went to 3 straight Super Bowls actually, and then they were successful even though they didn't get over the top with Dan Marino. They were winning consistently, and now you'd say for those who aren't familiar with the history of the Dolphins, they're just a mediocre team. Number 23, the Houston Texans.
Have a dark blue helmet with the Texans logo in the middle. The home uniform has the red divisions, stripes and neck, and the blue jersey, the name Texans above the chest number, the numbers themselves still very much more 2000s, 2010s look, very close together, very thin. The pants, white pants for the home jersey with the stripe all the way down, and socks blue on top, white on the bottom. The road jersey is almost the reverse, but white jersey with the blue divisions, stripes on the arms and neck, red numbers, and the pants navy blue with stripe all the way down, and the same socks, blue on top, white on the bottom.
I struggle with the Texans because I have to admit that I've taken it out on them to some extent that they're not the Oilers. I'm very high on the Oilers uniforms, and the Texans have always fallen short. They remind me a lot of the Patriots uniform, but again, much weaker. I've never been a fan of the helmet, the logo at all, even just the team name. I thought was just, they didn't put much effort into it. But trying to be impartial, I put the Texans higher on the list than I originally did because there's nothing in the uniform that is just a terrible weakness. While I don't really like the team name, the logo, the only thing I really can say that I don't like about it, that I feel strongly about, is the numbers like a lot of these teams that we've gone through, especially the newer teams or the teams who have introduced a new jersey, go with these style of numbers which look weak. They're thin, they're very narrow, they're kind of pushed right up against each other if you have two digits in there. It's just, there's nothing special about it. It could be worse, but it's very forgettable.
Right, and the road combination, blue helmet, white jersey, blue pants, is done by the Texans and many other teams, and it is a pretty good look, but it's not that unique. Seahawks have that combination. The Titans now have that combination. Might be forgetting one, but
I agree that the road uniform is stronger.
Mm-hmm.
The striping on the shoulders bothers me also.
Mm-hmm. Right, it doesn't fit or complement the shape of the jersey. It's just out there in the middle.
All right, just a solid. What we're going for is, with a lot of these teams, just a solid color. Whether that just be the blue at home for the jersey would be nice and it'd be an improvement. And on the road, well, you can perhaps keep the blue collar, but you could ditch the blue striping on the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
22, Denver Broncos. And this is a team that we have very strong feelings about, and a team that historically I also respect. I mean, they've been in a remarkable number of Super Bowls. I mean, think about it. They've been in the Super Bowl in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. The only time they weren't were the 2000s. This past decade, they were in multiple Super Bowls.
And for them, we have dark navy blue helmet with the Bronco logo on the side, the orange stripe down the middle of it. For the home uniform, orange jersey with the stripe on the side, which is navy blue, and the navy blue neck. The team name, Broncos, above the numbers. The numbers similar to the Texans and other teams, very thin and close together. The pants are white with a stripe that does not go all the way to the bottom, and the Broncos were one of the first teams to introduce this style, which was then copied by many other teams since that have more trendy or non-traditional uniforms. And then the socks, blue on the top, orange, thin stripe in the middle, and white on the bottom. The road jersey is almost identical except for white is the primary color. The numbers are dark blue with orange borders, and the stripe on the jersey going down the side has orange border as well. Same pants and same socks.
Yeah, when I started, I was saying that we could go on. I feel almost the same way as about the Rams uniforms, about the Broncos uniforms. There's a lot that could be said. But when I think of the Broncos, I really do think of success and winning, and so much of that is John Elway. And then when they got Peyton Manning, that was the best time they had since the days of Elway and Shanahan coaching and Terrell Davis. So I wouldn't be as hard on these uniforms as it wasn't for that, because I do think of success. But I do want to say, when we've reached this point in our ratings, We're going to see a consistent theme here because we're looking for strengths and then we're also weighing the weaknesses. And in this series of teams that we've started with here with the Broncos, you're going to see very strong helmets. They are, without a doubt, the best part of the uniform, and you could even say stronger than average helmets. It's just, when I look at them, that's really the only thing they're getting right.
My only gripe for the helmet is the thin stripe down the middle. Downgrade from the previous helmet.
They're not the worst uniforms, but as you said very well, that they introduced this striping, which unfortunately so many teams followed, which we don't like. Also, the thin, narrow numbers that we don't like either. And I prefer the blue that they had for years that you think of with John Elway and even Peyton Manning that they wore over the orange.
Right, the orange, I'm guessing, attempted to try and be similar to the jersey series set that they had before that, the traditional Broncos, but there just isn't enough orange in this jersey set to really make it work well.
Yeah, without being too repetitive and redundant here, I'd like to see them drop the name. There isn't a single team I like that on. It's just unnecessary. The striping, and then fix the numbers. So basically just go back to the original orange uniform that we were familiar with the 90s, and it went back, of course, before that. Very solid uniform. I like the old helmets they had in the 80s and 90s too. 70s, 80s, 90s. But this helmet, I can't complain about it. It would stand as a strong helmet with that uniform set, but it definitely gives the Broncos at least a professional look, and when you see that helmet, it's a positive for them. It is a strength. Number 21, Detroit Lions.
Silver helmet with the revised lion logo with the extra detail, the mouth and eyes and shoulder. Also, silver face mask and a stripe down the middle that is completed. The home uniform has the color blue as the primary with very thin italicized numbers. Striping on the shoulder similar to the traditional 80s, 90s Lions with the name Lions on the outside. And then silver, or I guess I should say gray pants with a stripe that goes all the way down. And then solid blue socks. And for the road jersey, almost the same, but a white jersey. And the pants are blue with a stripe all the way down. And the socks are completely white.
I'm starting off saying the same strength as the Broncos is. We have a very good helmet here. And I like both the Lions, the classic Lion that doesn't have the detail, but I also like this one too, with the more detail on the Lion. I preferred the blue face mask, but no real complaint with that. There's no glaring issue with this other than, once again, don't like the numbers. but they're okay. They're passable. I mean, this is the definition of what you'd say is your average NFL uniform now. There's going to be, they have a very good helmet, but from the head down, there's some things you like, there's some things you don't like. I always like the team color blue, but I haven't been a fan as much of this version of the blue pants on the road uniform. And I think, again, simplifying it a bit on the sleeves, it doesn't need to say, it doesn't say Lions on the jersey on right in front, on top of the numbers.
Which is surprising for...
But you don't need it on the sides either. I just don't think it adds anything
Right.
to it. So if they would do anything, if I could make any decision, I'd just say, again, go back to one of the classics. Number 20, the Cincinnati Bengals.
And this team has the only set of new uniforms this year. And in many ways, it is a return to their original design, keeping the orange helmet with the black stripes, the black face mask, a black jersey for the home uniform with the Bengals name above the numbers. The numbers are modern style, slender, closely spaced together. There are orange stripes on the shoulders. The pants, it looks like, as we know right now, that they will be black default for the home with a stripe down the side in the tiger stripe pattern, orange and black, and black socks. For the road uniform, white jersey with the Bengals name above the numbers, black stripes on the shoulder pads, and for the pants, white pants with white and black stripes going down sides with white socks. And these road uniforms are similar looking to the Color Rush white on white uniforms that they had in recent years.
Well, starting at the top, the strength of the uniform is the helmet. It's a timeless helmet, and although they've changed now their uniforms for a second time since their 80s, 90s look, and ever since they've had this helmet has survived decades, and I just don't really see how you would improve upon it. It is one of my favorite helmets in entire NFL. Looking at the new jerseys, I wish they would just stay with what they had in the past. It's better than the hockey style jersey that they had just going back to last year and the past 15 years. I don't like the pants. I don't like the numbers. I don't like the name on there again. But for me, the reason why we're not putting this number 25 is because of the helmet. The home is better than the road. The road, I think, is especially weak and plain. And here we have another team that wants a new look because they have the new quarterback, and maybe they were a year late with that since they drafted Joe Burrow last year. But not much more to add it on to what we've already said. Hopefully they will wear white pants at home. We'll see. But even if they do, the pants are just so plain. They're not bad. so much is they don't add anything to the uniform, and it's better than just having plain solid pants. But hopefully they decide that contrast is the better way to go. We've always felt that white on white is a good look for the Bengals on the road. It's just, it would be nice to have some orange on those pants to go with the black. And we'll see what they do with the socks as well. Number 19, the New Orleans Saints.
And the Saints have the gold helmet with the logo on the side, traditional stripe, white border, black down the middle, black face mask. The home uniform has the gold collar, the numbers, and then the black pants are the default. No stripe, just the logo on the side. Black socks. The road uniform has white jersey with the black collar, the numbers, and we have the black pants as the default, same as the home, with white socks.
Well, the Saints, this uniform set is one of the ones that we discuss the most because we grew up with the home uniform being gold helmet, black jersey, gold pants, and then the road it was, of course, gold helmet, white jersey, gold or black pants, but primarily the gold pants, and then the black pants came in later. The home and road uniforms were excellent uniforms that they had, and then over the years they decided, well, we're going to wear black on black, and the Saints are the ones that really made that a popular look. And I just can't understand, because again, contrast here. And it's not just that it's black on black, but these black on black pants have transitioned to a one-piece skin-tight pair of pants that really aren't pants. They're tights. And that's a trend that has really, again, spread throughout the league. It looks even worse with the white uniform. I mean, it's one thing not to have the gold pants or the black pants with the road, but no color at all, no stripe, and then there's no contrast on the. At least you could go and do something with the socks and give them a gold color for the home, or on the road they could have black socks, just something to complement the helmet or the numbers. But they don't do that. I mean, it should match if the pants themselves aren't going to match. It's not that they always wear the one-piece tights, but that's how the pants come across. Yeah, I'm using that loosely. They always appear to be one piece. That's what they're going for. The strength uniform has always been the helmet. The jersey I don't have a problem with. It's all about the pants. Unless they wear the gold pants, they get it wrong because of the decision and the style they've gone with. Talking about the history of the Saints, they won one Super Bowl, and they won it with the gold pants, and they won it looking great. They never looked better, and they've never won and been able to get over the hump since. From our perspective, there's a good reason for that, because they've abandoned their strongest look.
Right, and even when the Saints started wearing black pants, since we've been watching, they used to have a stripe, and it was either, I believe it was black with white border on the sides, but it did provide some contrast. But the gold pants aren't what they used to be now that they don't have any shine or sparkle in them, but they're still better than the black or white pants options.
I never thought I'd ever be saying about football. When we watch the Saints play in the Superdome, I feel like we're going to watch one team in football uniforms, another team at the ballet. That's what I think of when I think of the Saints. And that was always an embarrassing thing that you'd hear, oh, football players would do ballet to help them with their footwork. But you wouldn't think they would take that onto the field, and that's exactly what they've done.
At times, the Saints have chosen to wear tights or pantyhose instead of traditional pants. They're semi-transparent. The pantyhose are a nice touch on the cheerleaders. The players on the field need to wear pants. I hope all of us guys can agree on that.
Here's another case, like we talked about the Falcons. It looks worse at the Superdome. And the Superdome is the last place of all stadiums that I want to watch a football game. It's dark, it's dismal, it's depressing. And Drew Brees, this was the last uniform. That all-black uniform was what he retired in. It was a bad way to go out.
Right, and they have the gold pants still. We've seen them
They've teased us
in the preseason. Right, from what we've researched, and they've continued to wear them in the preseason pretty much exclusively. They even wore them for the final game of the second to last game or final game of the season last year, right, in Carolina. So they still have them. They could wear them, but they don't.
Okay, we've gone on at more length, even in the Rams with the Saints. And you'd say, well, why are they even at number 19? Why aren't they in the 20s? Well, once again, we have a great helmet, and it is a clean uniform. The numbers are still good numbers, and there's no name printed on the jersey. So there are positives here, even though we've seen such a steep decline in the Saints uniform.
Right, and it's surprising that I've thought to myself many times that they have not changed their uniforms more dramatically, that they hadn't revised them or made them more trendy even in the early part of the last decade, even the end of the 2000s. But it is disappointing what they could be if they would just use what they have.
Number 18, the New England Patriots.
And they revised their uniforms last year with the departure of Tom Brady. We have the same helmet as the Tom Brady era. Silver helmet, logo, and red face mask. But the uniform, especially the home uniform, is similar to the color rush that was used for the last preceding handful of years before 2020. A little bit similar to the Bengals, taking elements from that, with the home jersey being blue, with the shoulder pad striping similar to the color rush home, but with white numbers. They have the name above the numbers, and a small logo as well, similar to the end zone logo. The Patriot team logo on the shoulders. The numbers are, you would say, something in between traditional and modern, but still more modern, I would say. Fairly thin, close together. The pants have a stripe that goes from top to bottom and looks pretty good. The socks are blue on top with a red stripe that's thin in the middle and white on the bottom. The road set is very similar, but with a white jersey with the stripes on the shoulder pad being red with the blue middle instead of red and white. Same number style and same blue pants, same blue, red, white socks.
Well, Tom Brady got out of New England at the right time, right before they switched to these uniforms. I don't like anything about the jersey and the pants, as again, blue on blue. Why? I have to ask. There was nothing wrong with a silver or even gray pants for the Patriots. The road's a little better again because we have that white on top, blue on the pants. But the reason I have them here and not also in the 20s is because the helmet. The helmet, the Patriots helmet, may be my favorite helmet out of all 32 teams. It's one you think of with winning because of Brady and Belichick, but logo's great, and the face mask, they work off each other so well. Having the red face mask, I wouldn't change it. I like the 80s look also. That white helmet was a good one, but this helmet is so strong, in my opinion, that you can look past the other faults. I mean, the numbers could be better. They're not the worst. They could be better. I don't like the name on the jersey, as we said with almost all these teams they have in common. And then there's no point of having a little logo right underneath it. But they're not ugly. They're just, again, no contrast, and it is definitely a step back from what they've had.
The Bengals, Saints, and Patriots, they share the same strength, which is an above average to superb helmet. But they get very little right with the rest of the uniforms. Number 17, the Baltimore Ravens.
They have a black helmet with the Raven logo on the side, a purple stripe that goes from the top of the helmet to the bottom of the helmet, a black face mask. The jersey has the numbers on the high part of the shoulder and the Baltimore shield on the lower part. The name of the team is placed above the numbers, which are white with a slight drop shadow and black border. The pants are white with a stripe running from the top to the bottom with the same B logo used in the Raven logo on the helmet. On the top over the stripe, and the socks are black. The road uniform is fairly similar, except that the numbers are purple. They have a gold border and a slight drop shadow. Interestingly, they don't have the team name on their road uniforms, only the home. And the pants are black with the same B logo placed at the top. No stripe, and these socks are black.
As we enter this new series of uniforms, these are the average uniforms. There's nothing particularly bad about them, but there's nothing that really stands out as being impressive. The last series we did, we saw strong helmets, weak uniforms. Here it's just, when I'm looking at them, average from top to bottom. I do like the helmet. When they went to the Raven over the B shield that they had when they first came into the league, that's a stronger look, and it's lasted, and that was a good move. The best version of the uniform set is definitely the home. Purple on white, not purple on black, which they've experimented over the years. But this is a unique look because the Vikings are the only other team that has purple. But they've got the black helmet versus purple on purple. And for the color purple, it's the best looking uniform there is because of what the Vikings have done with their uniforms this century. They've gone in the wrong direction. So home uniform solid as long as they go with that combination. Road uniform, I've never really liked it. The jersey's fine, but the pants. We got to have a white stripe on the pants. Just solid black all the way is never a good look. And then socks are black as well.
Right, they could use a different color sock to create some contrast, and definitely a stripe on the pants like they had when they originally were brought into existence.
I have to say, when I look at the Ravens, though, where they've succeeded is when you look at the uniform, you do think of a winner. Ever since we've been following sports, we think of various expansion teams. In baseball, we think of, the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, the Devil Rays, now the Rays. In football, we got the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Ravens, the Titans, the Texans. The Ravens are the winning team out of the group, and they've remained a winner. They've gone to 2 Super Bowls. They've won 2 Super Bowls in the about 25-year history. It's a franchise I have a lot of respect for.
Right, they really haven't had any long period of losing in their history. Maybe a bad season or 2 here and there, but no consistent losing.